Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Ramos, Director of the California Water Institute at Fresno State, and it's my job to moderate one of the hardest panels, the ones following after lunch. We got to make sure we keep you all awake. So welcome to the State of the Recharge State Policy, Regulations, and Technical Perspectives panel. I'm delighted to be here with such a strong group of experts to talk about California and how it's advancing floodmar and groundwater recharge, not just as individual projects, but as a full state coordinated effort. Over the past decades, groundwater story has evolved dramatically. We went from the beginning days of SGMA all the way to the record-setting flood events of 23 that reminded us how much potential we have, but also how much coordination is needed between everybody to make sure we capture it all. So today I have 4 key experts. First, we're going to hear from Paul Gosselin, Deputy Director of Water Management for the Department of Water Resources. And Paul will share insights on how state policy, especially from the governor's 2022 water supply strategy to Bulletin 118, is shaping groundwater recharge and the long-term sustainability goals of SGMA. And then we're going to hear from Steve Springhorn, he's supervising engineer geologist for DWR, and he'll walk us through more of the technical side, including groundwater balancing reporting, GSP implementations, updates, and some lessons from recent water quality sampling pilots. And lastly, we're going to round it up with Mike George? Sorry. Conway. I'm like, this doesn't look right. Mike Conway and David Fairman, both senior engineering geologists for the State Water Resources Control Board, and they're going to discuss how permitting tools, early consultation, and water quality clarity are evolving to support floodmar and recharge projects statewide. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started with Paul. Paul, the stage is yours.
All right, thank you, Laura. So next slide. And what I'm going to talk about is the policy drivers for floodmar. I was thinking coming up here is sort of like the policy hammers for floodmar. I think my talk's going to be sort of like the the downsides and sort of the negative sides, but really the drivers. And I do want to say too that, you know, floodmar recharge has been going on for a long, long time. And really my emphasis, thank you. Got it. I wasn't here in the morning, so this was lessons learned. So, you know, there's been a lot going on the last 10 years, particularly with SGMA, but also as I'm going to touch on the really extreme climate change extremes that have been going on has really ramped things up. And this is really increasing the need, the necessity for this to a point that it's affecting agriculture, communities to a level that, you know, is really going to dramatically affect every corners of California, not just the Central Valley and Sac Valley and coast. So one beginning point I'm going to talk about is Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Show of hands, how many, I imagine most people have been somewhat involved with Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, but I'm just going to do a light touch. You know, it does affect roughly about 100 basins across the state, and this is a real important driver for sustainable, for recharge. They're required to bring basins into sustainability by 2042. You know, and it is at a local level. The state has a very important role to play with the 200, well, I think it's closer to over 300 GSAs that have been formed. We're seeing repeatedly more GSAs are being formed for a whole variety of reasons. Over time, but really the role on this is between the department, the State Water Resources Control Board, with working with the local agencies to bring basins into sustainability. And those drivers are to look at the 6 sustainability indicators you see up there. You know, and it's more than just bringing the basins into balance. It is looking at groundwater uses and uses and avoiding undesirable results. And that's a whole new facet for water managers, taking a look at groundwater users, domestic wells, ag wells, groundwater-dependent ecosystems, a whole range of things. Very complicated analysis to bring basins into sustainability under the law. It's a new law, very complicated, but really the driver is going to be, like anything bringing into balance, either taking less out or putting more in, balancing your checkbook. And you've seen that really discussed in a lot of presentations earlier. And really going into this, and a long time ago I was in Butte County working on 3 subbasins, and really the emphasis, obviously, for a lot of approaches is trying to maximize how much can we put into the ground first. Natural human nature, you don't want to lead with your chin and go out and start doing demand management, start hurting the economy and your agricultural base and your growth. Look at what you can do to maximize recharge, and that's really been the emphasis. But now we're looking at, really the drivers here. We still have a ways to go on looking at groundwater overdraft. Groundwater levels still have a ways to go, and subsidence. The groundwater sustainability plans, there's about 1,500 project and management actions in these plans. 40% of them or so are recharge focused, which is pretty phenomenal. In contrast, around 12% of demand management. We're starting to see that ramp up. There's a demand management network that is kind of a parallel to the Floodmar network, and we're really excited to see that, because that's going to be a place. They are not going to be able to recharge their way out of this. It is going to have to be a demand reduction aspect to this, and particularly if you look on the subsidence side of things, subsidence is going to be a major emphasis we're going to take a look at in 2026. It's something that's sorely been not really addressed. It's one of the main sustainability indicators, and it's something that has been, we talk a lot about water supply reliability and surface water deliveries, and if nothing's done, the delivery of surface water is going to be affected upwards of 87% loss of reliability by 2040 if nothing's done for subsidence. And right now, billions of dollars are being spent, and I'm not overstating this, of state, federal, and local money to keep pace with the damage that's being done from subsidence, from overpumping, and that's money that's being taken away from water districts at the local level, Bureau of Reclamation, and the state water project for just keeping pace. So it's a death cycle of continued pumping, loss of surface water delivery that's continuing this decline. So we're coming out with a best management practice document later this year, and this is going to be another closed loop for the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, where us and the state board are going to work in concert to implement, help local agencies implement the subsidence best management practice document consistent with the law. And this is going to really point towards the need of additional recharge opportunities, because the difficult part of subsidence is land largely is going to have to come out of production or cease pumping. And this one aspect could be, these could be prime opportunities to take these lands and turn them into recharge basin or other opportunities. So, we're going to be looking at a lot of these subsidence bowls in the Tulare Basin, the mid-San Joaquin Basin, and there's pockets up in the Sac Valley that's newly emerging, which is somewhat disconcerting. The state board, and we're going to be looking real early in 2026 to see what schedule and steps the GSAs are going to take to implement this, and we're not going to be waiting for periodic reviews or annual reports. We're going to expect schedules and actions fairly soon. And the state board has interim plan authority if none of that is satisfactory. So things are going to happen fairly fast on implementation of subsidence. And then to add to that, besides the regulatory aspect, oops, sorry, I missed that. We have nature of the hotter, drier aspect of our lives. The temperature is rapidly increasing, so when we were back in the throes of the worst drought back in 2022, we were facing a lot of challenges looking at the increasing temperatures, and so the governor came out with a hotter, drier strategy that really pointed towards an additional 9 million acre feet that was just getting consumed by just the increased temperature. So this really created a challenge, and we came up with a strategy of trying to increase targeting other water supply aspects, and recharge was a major piece of the puzzle we were looking to fit. So besides Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, to deal with management aspects, now we have the advancement of climate change and aridification that's just adding to the challenges ahead that we needed to really double down. And then that came out in August of 2022, and we were staring down potentially the 4th year of a drought. And, we thought we had pulled everything out of our toolkit to deal with the drought, and some things people wish we didn't pull out. Some of those executive orders, you remember, some were good. We'll talk about some of the good ones, and then some of the ones dealing with well permitting people thought we shouldn't have done. But then the rains came. But, during that time, we were looking at advancing recharge through local assistance. We had $500 million up at that point through grants. Largely, a lot of those went to advance recharge opportunities. You'll hear more from the State Board on streamlined temporary permits and 5-year permits. So they started in 2018. A lot of advancement and lessons learned on that. From the hotter, drier strategy, we started direct technical assistance with permittees. It really became important to us if we were giving public dollars to public agencies for a certain purpose, in this case recharge, it really felt incumbent upon us to make sure those dollars actually got put to the use we gave them out for. So we felt technical assistance was a major part of that. And then again, keeping good partnerships like this with the Flood Network, and then the atmospheric rivers hit. And you'll hear more about the challenges that went through from the next panelist through the executive order that came down on flood diversions. The Water Board had a policy on that that turned into a governor's executive order, and then it was codified into law. And that had some aspects that made it a little bit more troubling, with some requirements that really could not be met from having to have local flood plans in place. So there was an executive order that kind of removed that for a time being till we can catch up and have the local agencies get up to speed with that and fulfill the law. And so in the meantime, we're putting together some assistance to help help advance some of the flood diversions and help recharge along the way. So again, we're still advancing a lot of recharge. There's a way to go. I think over really, we do struggle. I know there's a lot of hope that we could be a lot further ahead than we're at. But if you think about it, 2023 was a real sentinel point on what happened, and I think the opportunities that were there. So we're really coming into the 3rd year of of this lessons that we've learned, and the complexities of the issues on recharge with water rights, water quality, and the other aspects are very challenging. But we're really pushing ahead, and I do want to acknowledge those who have taken those challenges, maybe have hit some roadblocks. Those have been real helpful to us to understand where those challenges are, because it helps us find areas that we need to change. Because, a lot of the rules and laws and processes we have were built for a hydrology that doesn't exist anymore. And so by identifying where these roadblocks are, this is going to help us find pathways to remove them and move to a better future. So with that, looking ahead, we do have Proposition $4 that roughly $380 million in groundwater are ready to, largely they speak towards recharge, conjunctive use, banking, and groundwater sustainability. You'll hear more about FDRE and basin characterization. We have San Joaquin River watershed studies coming out probably by the end of the year, and conveyance studies that will all help advance this. So we really want to balance our assistance out to advance recharge, because, you know, projecting out 500,000 to 1 million acres of ag land going out of production is going to be devastating, not just for those communities, but for the entire state. And we need to do what we can to reduce that number down, and the way to do that is to maximize the opportunity to recharge and put water in the ground. So with that, I thank you, and I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul, and we'll hand it right over to Steve Springhorn.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be sharing this rainy day with you all, talking about recharge as it's happening outside. So Paul did a great job of describing the landscape and the hard truths that are out there as it relates to SGMA implementation. And so what I am going to be doing is highlighting, just sort of skimming the surface of the different assistance activities that we're doing that Paul mentioned, and also areas that we're looking to expand and work together on so we can get through and make it less impactful and do more recharge, but also have some of that demand reduction that Paul talked about. So skipping ahead here. So what I'll do is I'll talk about the state of recharge information, understanding and action, and then sort of where we're thinking of going next. And it definitely includes everyone in this room and others across the state. So I'll submit that we've never had a better time or more information on recharge than we do right now today. And it's not perfect, but it's coming in from all different streams. And there's never been more of those streams coming in together. But now I think what we have in front of us is we have to standardize those streams of information, have a common vocabulary so we can communicate as this community, but also out externally to landowners and others. And so I think the state of recharge information is strong, but it's still a little bit disjointed or disconnected, where we need to have more of that connectivity so we can be one voice as much as we can, where we have a tremendous amount, or a fire hose, if you will, of information coming from SGMA and all that's going on there. We have the watershed studies, which is tremendous new information coming in, as well as some of the flood diversion and recharge work that Paul talked about that we've been at for the last 3 years. And so one thing I wanted to highlight here is that we've tried, and we've made an attempt through some recent publications that have come out that the team has been working on for a number of years. The first one here on the left is California's Groundwater Bulletin 118. This is a legacy document that the department's required to publish every so often. And that, if you haven't seen it, it's out in draft. It came out October 20th. There's a comment period right now, so we'd love your feedback on it. But it has a tremendous amount of new information on recharge. One of our colleagues, Erica Haight here, and others, Jenny Marr and others, pulled all the state of the state's information on recharge and tried to put it into this document in one place. It's still a little messy, but that's the state of recharge information right now. So, but the point is, we need to put it in one place, work to standardize it as much as we can. But we know that information every 5 or 10 years is not good enough. And so we've also been working towards getting a semi-annual update out, so every spring and fall. And we're ingesting all the information that comes to us in the annual reports of SGMA. Which is a huge new asset for all of us to understand what is happening across the 130 or so basins that pump 95+% of the water in the state. And so when that information comes in, we digest it and then put it out in this semi-annual update. And we've now have, since 2019, a look at managed aquifer recharge across the state at a basin, sub-basin level. Now, that's still a little messy and the methods are different, apples and oranges, but it's a start. And then sort of the daily update, California's Groundwater Live. We've made some enhancements there. There's those recharge stats that we get as they come to us. That's all posted on California's Groundwater Live. And then open data, as we all know, has been transformational. It allows us to put things into one place and then people can access it. But it is sort of like a Home Depot. You sort of have to know where to go to find it. And I think that's where this network in particular, the FloodMar network, has been so amazing in organizing a group to lead to action. The water plan, the Central Valley Flood Plan, water supply strategy that Paul talked about, all of these are our North Stars trying to get us to use this information for a purpose. So then the state of recharge understanding. So I would say again, this is an area where we've never had more information about the groundwater basins beneath our feet and how water flows through those basins and how water gets to those basins than right now. So that's a good thing. And that's something we need to keep moving forward because the geology doesn't change, but our understanding of it does. And so we need to keep pushing like we have been. And so you'll hear a lot more about the physical characterization we've been doing. Catherine DeLubac will talk more about that in the next session, where we're taking the 25,000 line kilometers of AEM data that we flew over the last couple of years, turning that around to aquifer recharge potential maps. Those are starting to spin up now, which is exciting. And then going from the physical characteristics, which are important because that tells you where there might be the pathways to the subsurface, but then how does putting water on the landscape, and this group knows this very well, are there impacts or benefits to that? So the geochemical characterization, there's a lot of work going on from Sustainable Conservation and the recent TAC that they put together. The state board's in this game. We're trying to advance things through a FloodMar water quality sampling pilot, so getting more information from the ground where floods happen or MAR is happening. And then we have a very early partnership or effort going with the USGS in coordination with Department of Conservation to look at Central Valley salinity mapping and understanding the salinity across the whole Central Valley. And then there's big regulatory programs like the nitrate control program, where I think if we can keep bridging across these different silos of action on water quality, I think it's going to be a really great thing to do and a necessary thing to do. And then finally, you'll hear a lot more about this. Paul mentioned it too. The watershed studies. I think the systems, the understanding of the systems is arguably the most important part, because we could have the best view of the subsurface, where the best channels or preferential pathways are. But if we don't have a willing landowner, it's not going to happen. And so if we don't have a conveyance facility to move the water there or know that one needs to be established, that's where we're going to fall flat. So I think more of these watershed studies is so important because it's really operationalizing all this information and understanding. And so you'll hear more about that. And then another key point is groundwater accounting, where as a geologist, I'm really good at arm waving and trying to visualize things we can't see. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that don't trust that if you put water in the ground, it's going to be there at a time that you need it. And so I think that's where SGMA is really changing the game there, for there's controls on pumping, where people aren't going to pump out an asset that people have already put in and are expecting to have there. And then the accounting is really going to give more credibility and build that trust, which we need to really maximize the action in this space. So then to action, right? And so we have the most information we've ever had before on recharge. We've had the most understanding that we have to date. And then the action part. We have a lot of action, but we need more, right? We know there's so much more opportunity out there, and SGMA has really activated this massive community of 250 plus groundwater sustainability agencies, all the people that are in the larger SGMA community working with the GSAs. That has really accelerated the pace and scale of the need, and so we need to match that demand with the actions and the process to then get water on the landscape. And again, this group is the doers in the state in that, and we need more people doing that. And so just a few stats that show that. Of the 1,524 projects that are in about roughly 100 groundwater sustainability plans, 50 of those reported some tangible benefit, water supply benefit, totaling almost 3 million acre feet. Of that, 40% is recharge focused, right? As we know, people are trying to recharge their way to sustainability. As Paul said, that's not, you can't just recharge your way out of it. It's supply and demand. But it's important, people's attention is on recharge, as we know, so we really have to maximize that. And those projects that are in those GSPs, adopted GSPs that are being implemented, that's over 1 million acre feet of water that is in play there. So that's a big deal. And so then the demand side, 12% of those projects are focused on demand. And so there's even recharge projects that if you clear land for a recharge basin, that's demand management because you're removing that demand forever in that area. Another action that has really been driven since the floods of the Tulare Lake, as Paul mentioned, is really working within that emergency response phase, the executive orders that came out from the governor, the work that we did to get pumps in Don Cameron and others' hands to really support the locals in flood risk reduction, number one, but with a secondary benefit of recharge. And then so we're really trying to scale that up as we go, and hopefully we'll be doing more of that this year as weather permits. So just a couple highlights here, almost 60 pumps, most of those have been purchased, so that is built capacity year in and year out for about a decade or more, the useful life of some of these pumps for action to happen. There's almost 1,000 acres of land cleared that floodwater can go on. A lot of improvements to conveyance to move more floodwater and then more recharge basins, and all of that has totaled about 25,000 acre feet of water that has been put on the ground through these efforts. So again, where we go next, really continue to coordinate and collaborate and really utilize and move forward this FloodMar network, which is so amazing. Standardize the recharge terms so we can all speak the same language, and then really expand our monitoring so we can understand and showcase the benefits and some of the impacts, and then really just scale up and continue to engage. So I'll stop there and pass it to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And now we'll have Mike and Dave tag teaming the next session, right?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Good afternoon, all. My name is Mike Conway. I lead the Recharge Permitting Unit within the Board's Division of Water Rights. And I think I have a simple message for everyone today. I'm gonna share, the easy ways and the hard ways, and I'm gonna share a couple of options from our perspective for recharge, the ones that we have involvement with, those looking for water rights and those doing the flood diversion option. So let's see here. As a preface, I just want to say, the supplies in the Delta watershed are really strained. So I think everyone probably understands that. But when people are thinking about projects, the state of the state, from our perspective, is that the water that's available is during really high flows. It's generally wet water years. It's almost always the winter. And in some cases, it's exceptionally high flows. So again, both of the options I'm going to share today are from that perspective. How can we capture more high flows? This is just a quick look at what we're processing right now. Our priority this time of the year is temporary permits. This is a look at last year, actually, just to see what happened. We had 6 temporary permits last year. All of those ones we processed last year were those seeking 180-day authorizations. And why I mention that is because it's changed now. We have a new fee structure. We're moving people towards 5-year authorizations. So you'll see that next. But what you also notice here is that 4 out of these 6 utilize something we call the streamlined pathway. And simply put, those are projects looking for the highest of flows, looking for the easiest processing, looking to get a permit quickly. So last year, if you include the other 5-year permits that were authorized, we had 105,000 acre feet of potentially, authorized water, but only about 5,000 acre feet diverted. Because again, the high flows don't come in a uniform way or at the same time. The 105 really shows how we try to maximize capacity through permit capacity. We try to make that water available where we see that it can be. But the reality is often a lot less than that. So this year, here's what we're working on. We have 9. We had a total of 9. We now have 7 left that are in front of us. And what you'll see is that all these applications, other than, I think, 2, are 5-year temporary permits. And that, again, that's due to the fee structure. We're now offering a 5-year application fee that's the same as the 180-day. And we want to move entities away from this 180-day cycle of needing to reapply every year. And we've gotten some experience in the last few years with how to permit these. And so, again, we're trying to offer more service, for the same investment, and hopefully get more water diverted. These are our options here within permitting. From our perspective, a lot of entities start with a temporary permit. That's sort of the entry point to permitting if you're looking for a water right. But the ultimate goal, especially for these GSAs, is to move towards standard permitting. We want to get permanent water rights because we see long-term problems, and we think these problems aren't just individual years. These are long-term problems that need long-term solutions. So the temporary permit is the entry vehicle for the GSAs to try to figure out what can work. And after you get an idea of what does work, we want to move towards that permanent water right. Again, if you have permitting questions, I encourage you to reach out to us early. The earlier you reach out to us, the more we can offer you in terms of service. And also, again, the Delta watershed is complex. And so it's really just another reason to reach out to us early and talk about strategy. I would say particularly if you're in the San Joaquin watershed. Reach out to us early and let's talk about your strategy. We're going to transition to part 2. We don't have so much a regulatory role in the diversions under Water Code 1242.1 other than we collect the reports. We've also studied it. We know what it means, what it's offering, and what where the constraints are. So that's why we go around and we try to share what we know about 1242.1. And we had an executive order earlier this year that made 1242.1 look a little bit more like the executive orders you saw in 2023. It removed one of the really difficult sticking points for a lot of entities around determining that flood threshold. The 1242.1 as written talks about a general plan identifying a threshold, and we learned a lot of entities don't have that. And so this executive order in 1625 tries to provide a remedy for that problem within the drought counties. So that's the Central Valley. Where you saw the slide, thank you. Just move right along.
Between the department and the board?
We work together. You can tell we work together on this. That's why they're the same. We saw a lot of diversions in 2023 using the executive orders, and I think it's really important we keep looking back at 2023 as an example because we think it could happen again. And it also puts into perspective how much water could be diverted during a big event relative to the deficits we see. So 400,000 acre feet diverted. So 1242.1 adopted in 2023. It has a sunset on it. We don't know what things will look like after that. This is the testing grounds. We want to see who's able to utilize this section of the code and how useful it is. I also want to point out it still can be very restrictive, particularly in the San Joaquin. Some of you may be aware that diversions in the San Joaquin are really strained. And even for flood diversions, you won't be diverting under 1242.1 until you have a very high threshold of flow entering the delta. It's another reason to come see us early. If you have flooding issues and you need a unique solution, we encourage you to reach out to us early and talk about permitted options. Permitted options are the best ways to work through complex problems. These These general solutions like this on the books are good for some populations, but for complex problems, we want you to coordinate with us early. We spent some time working on a technical guidance document. This has a lot of the explanation about how 1242.1 is interpreted, what does it mean, what are the delta conditions that are required before I divert. All that's in here on our website. This is a quick list of the drought counties. Generally, it applies to all the counties within the Central Valley. If you're outside of that, you're in a unique place right now. Come see us, and we can talk about that. We have a reporting form available on our website. This form serves as a notice, an initial and a final report for 1242.1. A version of this is also available through our new water rights reporting system called Cal Waters. That's just now going live. It is live. And if you have an account in Cal Waters, that's fine. You can access this through that. But if you don't know what that is, that's okay. This is still available on our website. So you have two ways of getting this for now, and we're gonna leave it at that for now, okay? Quick overview of some of the reports we saw earlier this year, just 3 reports. We didn't have a big water year, so we didn't see a ton of diversions, but we got a couple. 2 diverters, 500 acre feet, not a whole lot. We have a dedicated email for the flood diversions, flooddiversionswaterboards.ca.gov. If you have questions about this pathway specifically, again, this is a non-permitted pathway. If you want to know about the non-permitted pathway, if you're not interested in ownership over that water, this might be a tool that works for you. Please let us know. Thank you all.